haven't and this is your first presentation, you're in for a treat. Welcome. My name is Allison Garrett and I work for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, and we're so happy to have you today. We're glad you were able to join us. We've had a lot of great presentations. We have a lot of fun stuff going on, and I'm going to not waste any more time and get to our next speaker, Lauren Hill. She is with DMG Glass, and she has some pretty cool stuff to show us. So Lauren, I'm not going to take any of your thunder away. Go for it.
Okay, hi. Thanks for having me. We're honored to be here with you guys. We have actually been sponsors of the festival for the past couple years. We've had the mobile unit there, blowing glass there on site. So this time we made a video special for you guys. And please ask questions as you go. I don't care if they pop up. I can answer through the presentation. But I think we'll go ahead and start.
Okay, and I just want to remind people that underneath where Lauren is speaking, there's a button to submit questions if you have them. So once she starts playing the video, if you have questions, I'll read them off to her.
Okay, thank you. So here we start with a hollow pipe. It's a blow pipe. It's like a big metal straw that the artists are able to blow through. And this is called a furnace. So he sticks that blow pipe or big metal straw into the glass furnace, and he's able to gather. So he turns that pipe and gathers it up kind of like cotton candy on a cardboard rod. And he's always turning. If he stops turning, gravity is going to pull the glass down. So the glass travels with gravity. If you can learn to work with gravity as a tool, you will be a much better glass blower. So as he continues to turn, he also grabs for a wooden block. And these wooden blocks are primarily made of fruit wood because we keep them in water all the time. We want them waterlogged. And you can see that the steam that comes up, so we're really shaping the glass with the steam. So if you have really wet wood on really hot glass, you get a nice bit of steam between the two. So at this moment, he's got about 2,000 degree glass on his blowpipe, and he's shaping it into a round shape. He will blow a bubble through it, and this bubble is able to transfer through that big metal straw into the glass. And you can see that basically it went from just a solid piece of molten glass to a hollow piece of molten glass. And because the glass is still hot enough, he's able to shape it. And you'll watch, this process moves pretty quickly. And then here in about a few seconds, he's gonna start letting that glass cool down. And when I say cool, he's gonna go from the 2,000 degrees to probably about 1,100 degrees. And this glass actually freezes at about 1,000. And that can happen within a minute. So you can see now it kind of just like he's taking a break and he's rolling it. Still, he's keeping it on center because it's fluid, it's moving. And he's gonna go in and gather another layer of glass over this bubble.
Hey, Lauren, we have a question.
Okay.
What is fruit wood?
Fruit wood is like, so wood, you can get wood from oak trees, pear trees, different kinds of fruits. So we use fruit wood because it's more porous as opposed to something like oak, which is a hardwood. I've tried oak, I've soaked it in water for like a year, and then it was like a big fire in my face. So fruit wood's more porous, so it really holds the water in. It loves to be waterlogged. It's like a squishy piece of wood. So you can see the glass is cool now. It's clear glass, and that tells us that it's frozen. That's about 1,000 degrees, so it's still really hot, but he needs to let that glass become stiff or has a skin on it so that he'd go in and gather again. If he goes in and he gets another layer and he's too hot, the glass is just going to collapse in on itself. And if he goes in and he's too cold, it'll throw the glass into thermal shock and crack it. So he's always, always turning, and now he's rolling and turning into blue color. So glass's main ingredient is sand or silica. And then, so that will create some of the clear glasses. What is this blue? What's mixed with the silica is actually copper. So how you get glass color is through different metal oxides. And you can see he's got a red sitting next to him as well. The red's actually made of gold. So reds, pinks, and purples. And that's the most expensive color because gold is more expensive. And so all the glass colors are different prices and they do different things. You can buy glass color in like bars or broken up frit, as we call it, which is just like little pebbles. And if his glass is really hot, it's really molten, the color just sticks to it. It's kind of like rolling sand and honey, right? The sand would totally stick to honey. And so that's the idea. Once his glass gets cold, color won't stick to it. Nothing will stick to it. It's like, I compare it a lot to, your functional glass. Like what's everyone's favorite functional glass? And do we know the difference between functional glass and sculptural glass? And I know my favorite functional glass, but maybe I'll wait and see if any of the students want to answer that. Get them thinking about function versus art. So again, he's using these wooden blocks to continuously shape the glass. And we haven't told you what he's making yet on purpose. So we like to sometimes see what the kids see. As the shape blows out and as he changes that shape, you see a lot of times they see different objects. I guess I'll go ahead and give it to you. Sometimes they say they see a light bulb or a lollipop or a wand. It's kind of crazy what everyone sees. So if you tell someone what you're making, they automatically see that. So we
Hey,
really
Lauren?
know what he's making. Yeah.
We have another question. How
Okay.
long does the process take?
That's a really good question. There's a lot of different answers for that depending on what you're making. So this project that we made special for you guys today, it took us about 25 minutes to make it. But Dan, the glass blower here, has been blowing glass for about 17 years. So I say 17 years and about 25 minutes. It takes a lot of skill to be able to blow glass or really do anything. It takes a lot of skill to also be a chemist and a mathematician and a lot of practice and an art historian, right? So anything you want to do is going to take practice.
Well, the next question coming in, I think you will probably answer, is how do they get it off the pole?
We are going to show you that. So we're going to finish this whole piece for you during this session. So it's from start to finish. You saw him start with just a clear bubble. And we saw that he put a layer of blue on there. And now he's actually cooling the glass down to go in and get another layer of clear. So he's going to, again, he needs to let that glass come to about 1,000 degrees so it can take the heat of going into that furnace and take another gather of molten glass on it. And there's a view of the tool bench, which I think is really cool to see. That black wad is actually just folded up wet newspaper. And again, he's using tools here just to cool the piece. Glass blowing is all about time and temperature.
And that was one of the questions that came in, is how hot, you may have mentioned this, how hot is the furnace?
Okay, so the furnace runs, what he's going to go into is called the furnace, this piece of equipment. That's where the glass is held and melted. So you can see me standing there at the furnace waiting to open the door for him. He wants to cool his pipe down because the furnace he's going into is about 2,100 degrees. And so when he pulls that glass out, you'll see that it's bright orange, but it's just that orange because it's so hot. And it's really clear glass that he's encasing that blue in. He's a fan, right?
Yeah. Somebody said, what if it burns too much? Is that a possibility?
It could get too hot. Honestly, if it got hot enough, to melt that steel, sure. But we have safeties and we have exhaust and we have a lot of we put a lot of safety measures into this because safety is no accident. So you can see he's going to drip it here. He's going to drip it right onto the glass. So you can actually see the glass, that's molten glass actually flowing at over 2,000 degrees. So it can get too hot. Like the molten glass's temperature is less than melting steel. So that's why we build the furnace out of steel. It's a steel frame. With ceramic hard bricks. So the materials we build that furnace out of are very much on purpose so that it can withstand that heat. Now, if something were to go wrong and it were to get too hot, I guess it could melt down the furnace.
And I think one of the things you may mention when you talk about functional is somebody had asked, how do you take that kind of glass and, for example, make a window? That's a different type, right?
It's a different formula of glass. So that, like, windows is my favorite functional glass. I can't imagine driving down the interstate without my windshield, and how many people take that windshield for granted. But that windshield was molten at one point. They had to pour it out on a slab, and it even has a little curve to it, right? So then they had to pour it out, and they had to call it fusing and slumping. They had to slump that down into that curve. So all windows were molten at one point. Now it's different material glass. There's different chemistry makeup. So for instance, like borosilicate glass, you cook in, it's in the kitchen, Pyrex cookware. That glass is made to withstand thermal shock. So it can go in the oven and the refrigerator and in and out, right? It can withstand that thermal shock. The glass that Dan's making here today can't really withstand the thermal shock. If you were to put that in the oven, it would shatter. It would go into thermal shock really fast. And then like the windshield glass it's made very specific to take, like, ideally if a rock hits your windshield, it doesn't completely shatter, right? So it's a different chemical makeup of why it can withstand the thermal shock, and sometimes you're in Florida and it's 150 out, and sometimes you're in Wisconsin and it's minus 30 out. So the windshields are made of specific formula to withstand different thermal shocks and different pressure. Like bulletproof glass also is a completely different makeup, but glass is all ingredient. The main ingredient is silica. And you can see he's shaping it here. Now, once it gets to 1,000 degrees, he's no longer able to move it. So that's why he's constantly going into that big burning chamber. We're remelting the glass or keeping it up to temperature. Because if this glass gets below 1,000, if it hits 900 degrees, it's going to go into thermal shock, and it'll just crack and fall off the pipe right there on the floor.
Somebody had a question about how you deal with the heat, the people, you all working with these types of materials.
Kind of get used to it. It's a labor of love, really. I don't mind the heat. I blow glass in Florida, right? So there's something a little bit crazy about that. Our shop can definitely get up to 120 degrees. And it's just part of the deal. Drink lots of water, make sure you eat lunch, you get a good night's sleep. It's labor intensive. You really do have to prepare your body. Coming in, we make sure that we all feel good, we're all healthy. Because if it is dangerous. I've known people that have passed out, went to the hospital, and I've known people to get burned pretty bad as well. But it's just safety is no accident. And I say that over and over and over again. It is a dangerous material. It's good to work with instructors that know the safety, to learn the safety. When we teach classes here, that's the first thing we talk about is safety. And if you were to sign up for a hot glass class here, I would tell you when you sign up, make sure you sleep the night before, eat breakfast, drink a lot of water, come in hydrated. Don't come in dehydrated. That's really, really important.
We had another question coming in about the type of scissors he was using. What kind of scissors are those?
So they're called straight shears, and they are made of steel to withstand that heat. And they will get hot. If you were to hold them on there very long, they will get hot, but also they make the glass really cold really fast. So anywhere that steel touches the glass, it steals all of the heat out of it. And remember, glass needs to be molten. It needs to be above 1,000 degrees, and they need to be able to move it and manipulate it. So this is called the glory hole, what he continuously is going in and reheating. And that piece of equipment runs about 2,300 degrees. And he's just going in, he's soaking it, and he's always turning it, but he's soaking that entire piece of glass in heat. And you can see where the glass is the hottest is where it's more orange. If you look to the different colors, the one side is really orange, and one side you can almost see the true color. So you can see where the heat is concentrated in the glass.
Somebody asked, have you ever gotten any of the glass on yourself or on you?
Yeah, I've been burnt pretty bad. We've lost a couple pieces. When they go into thermal shock, when you first start blowing glass and you don't heat the piece enough and it falls off the pipe because it goes into thermal shock, yeah, there's been some burns, but you come back the next day if you really love the material. I mean, it's fun, it's rowdy, it's hot, it's sweaty, it's labor intensive. You also sleep really good at night. It's good for the brain.
Somebody asked how come you have to burn it so many times?
So the glass it goes from 2,000 degrees to 1,000 in about a minute. So he's got to keep it above 1,000 degrees to keep it moving, to keep it molten. If it becomes a solid or a frozen, then he can no longer manipulate it. So he's going in right now to heat it again. That tells us that the glass is cold. He's at 1,000 degrees. So every time he's going to heat, It's because the glass is cold. He has to keep it hot. And then remember, if it gets too cold, it'll go into thermal shock and it falls off the pipe. So that thermal shock is when the glass cools too quickly and it will just crack. It stresses the glass out. So at the end, when he wants to keep this piece, we actually have a kiln set up, and that kiln is at 920 degrees because the glass goes into thermal shock about 900. So we have our kiln set at 920 because it's above thermal shock but under molten temperature of 1,000. So we're pulling it out of the furnace at 2,000. It becomes a frozen solid at 1,000, and then it'll start going into thermal shock at about 900. And that all happens within minutes. That's all like in a minute and a half time that can go from the molten to thermal shock. So that's why he's always reheating it. So here he goes for another reheat. And what
the biggest thing is you've ever made?
Dan and I here working together, have been working together for about a year. And the biggest thing I've probably ever helped with is one of his pieces, and it was about the size of me.
Wow.
It was nuts. But in that kind of piece, we had 6 people helping. So glass blowing is also very much team effort. You work with your buddies. It becomes almost like a family. So we had 6 people on the floor creating that piece. And it's, it's a little bit different of equipment. It's bigger blowpipes, bigger scissors, pretty much bigger everything. And you lose a couple of those big pieces learning a lot of lessons, because when you're working that big, it also there's a learning curve to that. But Dan has been blowing glass again for about 17 years, and he's known to make big work. So what I'm bringing him is I'm gathering, you can see over here in the furnace, I'm gathering more glass out, and he's making, what we're doing is called bit work. So we're adding bits of glass, and he's basically hot sculpting. So he's sculpting the glass while it is hot as I'm bringing him pieces of, this is red is what I'm bringing him. And if you remember, red is made with gold, right? So it's the most expensive glass color. I think it's really cool how chemistry plays into it. All the metals and the silica mixed together creates the different colors. And then I think it's cool that, we use metals as part of our building our equipment and for our tools, and then we're using wet wood to create the seam. I mean, there's so much science that goes into this. But right here, I just have the clear molten glass, and I'm rolling in that red, again, to pick it up. Because the glass is so hot at 2,000 degrees, it's really, really sticky. And then I'm gonna go melt that in, and I'm creating these red bits for him to add to his piece. And I do have that piece out of the kiln. So at the end of this video, you'll see us put it in the kiln. And we put it on a pretty fast program to bring it down so you could see it today. At the end, I'll show you. And hopefully you can see maybe what he's making, or maybe you're guessing. But you'll see it starting to come together here towards the end.
We want to remind people, if you want to submit a question right underneath where Lauren is speaking, just hit the click submit question button and we'll try to read it out for her.
Do we have any students on that have actually been here to one of the field trips to our location, or have had the mobile unit out to you?
We'll see if they respond. I'll let you know. Okay.
It's exciting once I start seeing some of the same students over and over again. I've done this for about 4 years with DMG, and a lot of the students they've gotten scholarships and actually have done classes with us. So it's really cool to build upon their skills. Because the first time they see it, it kind of is like, whoa. And then as they take classes, it's really exciting. And we do offer classes here and scholarships. Once that starts opening back up, we will open up that process again for local students to get those scholarships.
I guess one question would be, Lauren, what do you do with some of the things that you have? Are they featured in stores, or how does that work?
So like as artists, our personal work, I mainly show here out of the Duncan McClellan Gallery, and it shows that he does across the country. Dan here shows at probably like maybe 10 to 15 international galleries. He traveled for 6 years running the Corning cruise ships. If you guys have been on a cruise and there's glass blowers on it, Dan might have been one of them. So he managed for Corning Museum of Glass for about 6 years. So his work's all over the world. But you pick and choose your galleries, right? As an artist, it's like doing business with a different company, and the more galleries you get, the more companies you're working with. Sometimes you learn lessons the hard way, like, oh, I won't do that anymore. That was a really good gallery. But it's all getting yourself out there, marketing yourself as an artist. And then at DMG, Duncan represents here over 100 international artists. So we're really fortunate to have Duncan as leading this, and all the artists that he brings in, and all the artists that come through here teach us a lot. So we're getting ready to add one of the final bits, as we call it, and he wants that glass, so I'm going to add to him really, really hot so he can move it around. You can see he almost just wants it to drip on. I'm going to hold it straight up and use gravity. So there you can see how we use gravity to help us place the glass where he wants it. And because the glass is so molten, he was able just to cut it. Kind of like cutting like taffy. If the kids have ever, like Laffy Taffy, your candy. It's molten glass moves a lot like that. And you can see here he's pulling out because the glass is still hot enough for him to manipulate it and move it, basically push it around. So he's using metal tweezers here, giant metal tweezers that are for this, not just your bathroom tweezers. But he's pulling out the top of that piece. I don't want to give it away just yet. So glass blowers spend about 60% of their time reheating the glass. If you see, because someone asked, why does he heat it so much? That's where they spend about 60% of their time. And he's going back to shape those, shape the little top again. It's a pretty cute little thing, I think. I don't know what you guys are thinking about it.
I think I know what it is, but I'm not going to say. We got another question.
Okay.
Somebody wanted to know, if you mess up, can you kind of improvise, fix it?
Yeah, a lot with working anything in the world, where you're working clay, metal, glass, it's not really about working with the glass, it's how you fix the glass. It always messes up every time. Nothing ever works out just the way we want it to. And if any of you are making art and it doesn't turn out the way you want it to, we're all here with you every day. Improvise, make it work. I do say this to artists. I run an emerging artist program here, and I tell the artists, don't tell people your flaws. Don't point them out. Like, if you see something that you didn't like, no one else needs to know. It's cool. It's your piece of art. Own it. I tell the artists, don't tell them what part you didn't like, because artists are their own worst critics. And no one else is probably even going to notice it if you don't point it out. And I say every piece is a lesson. No piece ever turns out the way we want it to. Don't, like, Dan, we were going through some things here. We're not going to tell you what didn't turn out exactly the way you want it. We're just going to own it and be like, yep, this is our piece.
That's right. It's perfectly flawed.
Yeah. Every piece, everything you make, yes. Until,
now, what's he doing now? What's he doing now?
So he's melting a glass rod with a torch. So he's got me turning the pipe. Remember, someone has to keep it on center and turning it. And when we get to this point, we kind of flip it back and forth. This is called the technique for hot sculpting. And he's adding detail with, he's using a rod of green. And that's made of iron. So it's iron and silica. There's a couple other things in there, soda lime ash, a couple other chemistry components that give it the clarity and allow it to heat at a lower temperature. But he's doing detail work, and that's really important, like attention to detail. And I have it right here, and I'm excited to show you as soon as he's almost finished with the piece. And he'll cool it down slowly. So he's going to take a couple more heats in that glory hole to make sure the entire piece is the same temperature. So when we put this in the kiln, he wants that entire surface to be 1,000 degrees. And then we're going to set it in the kiln and we're going to walk away. And it's kind of like baking cookies. And we bake these cookies at 920 degrees and they come down slowly. This one came down over about a day. So we made it actually yesterday morning and brought it out this morning. And he's torching that. It's called the jack line. That's the restriction line. So that's how he's going to break it off. He's going to thermal shock the glass where he wants it to break. So remember, this whole process, we've been avoiding thermal shock. We've been heating the glass and taking care of the glass, and it's all about temperature and timing. Well, now we're going to use thermal shock to our advantage, and we're going to break the glass off the pipe where we want it to break. So he's got a bucket of water behind him, and he's going to dip water right on that line where he wants it to break. And I'm going to catch it with Kevlar gloves. So he's thermal shocking it. The glass where he's touching it with the water, it's not liking it at all. It stresses it out really fast. And then with just a tap, the vibration will make it crack where we thermal shocked it. And now we're going to take it over and put it in a kiln, and this kiln's at 920 degrees. It's a small kiln to get it in there, but it worked. It's all about making it work, right? So there she is, and then she went night-night for about a day. And I can show you now, I'll bring it out and show you the final. I don't know if some of you can see it, and I can stop screen sharing if you want. There. So here it is now. You can see it.
Wow. Oh my goodness. It's bigger actually than I thought it would be. It's hard to tell when he has it on the end
Yeah,
of the.
so it probably weighs 8 pounds maybe. And you can see where it came off the blowpipe, right? So there's a little hole there in the bottom. And there's a lot of things that you can do with that. But I think it's pretty cute.
Wow, it's amazing. You guys are a great team.
Thanks.
I don't know what I would have come up with.
Dan was the artist, and he actually works here for us full time. And I said, well, this is for Science Fest it's 4th and 5th graders. And he's like, perfect. And I was like, deal, that's a good piece for them.
It's a really good piece. It's great. I love it. I love it. Lauren, thank you guys so much. This was fascinating. I hope people will come and check you guys out. You're located here in St. Petersburg, Florida, for locals or for people looking for a nice little day trip, something to do to sign up to take one of their classes. We really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Thanks.
So that is going to wrap us up for the St. Petersburg Science Festival School Day event on Track A. My name is Allison Garrett. Thank you so much for being with us today. Just want to remind you that there's tons more to see and watch, and we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's event at stpetescifest.org, stpetescifest.org. Join us. You can see all of our live presentations taped, all of our taped videos. There's so much more to see. We can't possibly cover it all in just a couple of hours. So we hope you'll join us then, and have a great weekend.